Welcome home. We are WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are taking the Maryland Crab Cake Tour out on the road, which is why I'm wearing my State Fair gear. We're going to be out on August 13th with potential new Senator Angela Alsor-Brooks, who is the Prince George's County executive. And she'll be with us in the afternoon at State Fair in Catonsville. We'll be giving away the Gold Rush Sevens doublers from the Maryland Lottery. Our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions will be on hand with my clean water, as well as Jiffy Lube Multi-Care, getting us out on the road. Luke is on the road to Owings Mills, down to the ballpark, back and forth, covering the Orioles and the Ravens. I get this guy on maybe once a year, twice a year if I'm lucky. And he has a funny title, and it's so nerdy, and I love it so much because it's the most important thing I think we can figure out is what these teams are getting from us and their ownership is getting from us. We've gone through an ownership change that felt like it was about 3 decades over time. I got to know Kurt Badenhausen a little bit at his previous employer. He's now at Sportico doing sports valuations. We've come a long way. We've lost sports beat writers in all sorts of ways. We have a sports valuation reporter at Sportico. I know he loves that title so much. Kurt, welcome back on, man. You always make news when in the business community when these things, because they only go up, as Mr. Rubenstein has pointed out, and you sort of make news as this, but this is like a lifer project, term paper for you. You've been at this a long, long time, brother.
I've been at this a long time, 30 years since I got out of college, and we first started doing this at a place called Financial World.
It's made
3
your hair
decades
gray.
ago.
Look at you, man.
Yeah, I've lost a ton of it, and it's made it very gray. But obviously a lot has changed over 30 years. 30 years ago, you pick up a sports team for less than $100 million, basically across outside of a handful of NFL teams. There was no business. These were not businesses. These were kind of mom and pop shops, run typically by longtime owners who collected a few dollars from tickets, concessions, got some money from TV, maybe sold a sponsorship or two. Now
Got
these
to
are
be a
big
civic
businesses.
hero. Got to be a civic hero was a big part of that. And whether it was
100%.
egotistical or magnanimous, that was part of all of the gentleman's club of sports in the 50s and 60s. And it was all white men. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, no, 100%. Corporations weren't really interested in it because the businesses weren't big enough. Bankers weren't interested in it because the business wasn't big enough. Now here we are. Sports is an asset class, which drives people crazy. Drives the fans crazy because they just want to be fans and they don't care about all this stuff. But the reality is it is an asset class now. Valuations have gone crazy. It's attracting all sorts of institutional investors. It's attracting all of these financial type people like David Rubenstein, who are seeing these. Again, there's a civic component to it, absolutely, still, but these are real businesses now, and hence they have multi-billion-dollar price tags.
Rubenstein appeared on Squawk Box a couple weeks ago. He won't be sitting down with me in any authentic way, so I fair enough. It is what it is. He just bought the team. We sit here talk about the team the last 33 years, every day of my life, Kurt, as you know. I'm not owed anything, but I think the civics part of the expectation of $600 million coming to their stadium and what you will be talking about in the next couple of minutes when it comes to how much money they're making. But he was on Squawk Box, and this was my entree to him because I really didn't pay attention to him at all because I wanted to meet him. I wanted to make my first judgment, not what I saw at a press conference or his television show about nerdy money or whatever. I'm like, why did this cat get involved in this? And he said, now he's trying to get money, right? He's trying to get money from other people like him and this Arrighetti cat to give him money. He's been out on a little bit of a tour to try to generate money to pay off what's left of Mr. Angelos's $1.8 billion thing. And he said no one's ever lost money investing in sports. That's his come on. That's his sales pitch. And then he says, I did this as a philanthropy. And then within 10 seconds in the same sentence, he said, of course, we expect to make money. I would have probably pressed him on that as a journalist. But that being said, what is so good about this that Michael Arrighetti, who, went and bought beers to be famous on opening day and runs in the hot dog races down there with his kids. What's the jam for these guys other than box seats and to say that they ran in the Kentucky Derby and they bought part of the horse?
Well, it dramatically escalates your profile. It doesn't matter if you're the founder of one of the largest private equity firms in the world. A lot more people know who David Rubenstein is now than they did um, before he bought the Orioles. You look at a guy like Shad Khan, very successful businessman, created a giant auto parts supplier, sold it for multiple billions of dollars. Nobody knew who Shad Khan was. He bought the Jacksonville Jaguars, and people like, the funky mustache. Everybody knows Shad Khan now. So the reality is it raises your profile. That has some advantages to it, some disadvantages too. You got to take some slings and arrows from the media and the fans, but
Well,
mostly
Bisciotti always
advantages.
hated that. He wanted to have the team without being famous. And
Yeah, yeah. And there are owners out there like that, but they are unusual. Most of them like the high profile, being the face of these franchises. And he is true. I wouldn't. It's not verbatim. Every single sports franchise is sold for more. You can go back to famously, got to go back a long time. The CBS sold the Yankees to George Steinbrenner. Lost money on the deal. And then also Bob Johnson, when he unloaded what became the Charlotte Hornets again, to Michael Jordan, also for less than he paid for it as an expansion team. But outside of those two examples, the line goes up and to the right, and particularly for the NFL and NBA, it has been a massive escalation in values. MLB not so much, because it's such a local business, and so you don't get that gigantic check from the league. Your local business really drives everything. And for clubs like the Orioles, who, I mean, at one point were literally at the top of the echelon. They were at the top of cream of the crop up there with the Yankees. I mean, they were a top 5 franchise in the league financially after Camden Yards opened. Top 5 franchise in terms of value, revenue, you name it. But as everybody else started building stadiums, market size came more into play. Orioles had trouble drawing fans. Camden Yards got a little older, and here they
the
are.
team stunk. The team stunk.
The team stunk. Yeah, fans stopped coming. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and Bill DeWitt had his paws on this team all these years ago. I wrote about it in the Peter Principles. It's all factual. Bill DeWitt and what St. Louis, the stability St. Louis has shown, it would have been very, very easy for the Orioles to have been the Red Sox of the East during that period of time had it been well managed. To your point, it was mismanaged and then cashed in angrily for Masson and the DC thing. What does Rubenstein inherit here, Kurt? I mean, like, to me, he bought this thing. He ain't going broke. But what does move this to another level? And hiring Katie Griggs in from Seattle, you do valuations on this. What makes this a more valuable property other than Adley Rutschman and a few home runs and a few World Series parades, but making it well managed from a business model? Because we're going into a place with baseball where they have no idea where this revenue is coming from. They really don't.
You're buying a distressed asset, honestly, with the Orioles because of how mismanaged it's been. There's no reason it shouldn't be a $2 billion plus franchise, because if the team draws consistently, able to generate more revenue from the stadium. I mean, the biggest cloud overhanging the club obviously is Masson, and its relationship with the Nationals. How those funds are going to be allocated in terms of rights fees. They've settled. They've been in court for a decade now. They've settled the rights going back. I don't know what the exact time period going back.
Be very, very blessed that your
ago.
name's not Eric Fisher or some of my other mafia that I had to call every 3 months when there was another Masson arbitration dispute. Because I know you were in on it on the outside, keeping an eye on it. But imagine having to explain that to yourself, to people for 15 years around here as to why the Orioles would punish themselves, put a poison pill in a contract that would artificially restrict their own revenue to make their baseball team better, to enrich the owner on the media side. It was an astonishing play here. And then scream with his arms up on being robbed the whole time. It was an amazing play the last 20 years of Mr. Angelos's life here. It really was.
Well, and again, it complicated the sale of the Orioles. It obviously complicated the sale of the Nationals, because people are kicking the tires on both of these franchises and realizing this cloud is over. There's a massive overhang on both franchises. So we don't know how it ultimately will be sorted out. But the Orioles obviously have a good foundation, should be a very good franchise. Attendance is up. They're going to have massive stadium renovation that'll help modernize the stadium. and obviously create more revenue generating opportunities. And if this is a franchise that can draw 30,000 plus fans a game with a good ball club, make the playoffs, that helps sponsorship, all those other components. The local TV thing is still TBD, very much. But you should be a $2 billion franchise with those kind of demographics.
Kurt Badenhausen is our guest. He is the sports valuation reporter, but so much more than that at Sportico. He comes on and talks money with us and talks valuation. We'll get to local TV TBD. I've written that down. I'll come back to that. But I want to come back to Rubenstein and the intentions of a 74-year-old guy to dance on the dugout and squirt the fans and give away hats and come out and, wear the old man hat and look like Steve Martin. And for all of these people that get involved in this at this point, the depressed asset, getting $600 million to fix their house up, coming into a good situation with, see, sign me up. How can I give some money to get in on that? A thing I can't lose on. And I don't want to say people are running toward this, but these things are getting valued to the point where regular people, no person can do this on their own, just poop out $2 billion to buy teams, that it's become exclusive to the exclusive point, and also corporate to some point where there aren't people that have any thought about the community, and baseball's all about the community, to your point. Like, they have to figure this out from the ground up, maybe the way hockey did forever, not, having money, and through, I don't want to call it a niche sport, because I guess it is. I look around, everybody's white at baseball games, so I guess it is niche to some degree, but trying to figure out how to absolutely squeeze every nickel out of something where they have so much inventory. And I think the first thing is, just to your point, local TV's TBD. I'm wondering what the package comes to me, and is it $250 a year, $350 a year, $5? How much are they going to try to get just to have the games in on my television? And then when they sell the rest of it off to Apple and Amazon, are they even going to have any exclusivity to be able to do that? Because it feels like that's the revenue model, right? Is making me pay to watch it on television.
Well, the revenue model has been collecting money from people that don't watch it on television. I mean,
Pay for it anyway.
That's been the golden goose all these years. All these people paying their cable bill that never watch an Orioles game, but they still pay for MASN every single month as part of their cable bill.
$350 a sub. Six
Yeah.
states at one point.
Yeah.
Nag said North Carolina. I mean, they had quite a little empire.
Yeah, that was an incredible business model, and that's why these RSNs, when these deals were done and teams were getting equity in the RSNs, and they thought, this is again literally the golden goose. Our equity in this thing's worth $1 billion. We're going to get $80 million a year in rights fee. It's incredible.
We're going to beat up Comcast, and they're going to have to put it on and pay us our price.
The equity in all these things now is zero, outside of maybe the Yes Network, NESN, a couple other big market franchises. But MASN, there is zero equity in terms of what that RSN is worth right now. And because can it be an ongoing concern in 5 years? Probably not. Based
Kurt,
on
when I wake up the next day and it's still on TV, and I put the TV on, they're like playing highlight. They're racing animals I've never seen. I mean, it's like, I don't even know what's going. Like, and it was supposed to be this incredible generator and shining light for the brand, and they couldn't afford to put spring training games on, man.
Yeah. No, it is still very much TBD, because to make up for all those people that are paying for it that aren't watching, to your point, the fans who watch, the cost, is going to be hundreds of dollars. And then to your point, you're bringing in, then are streamers going to want this? At MLB, they do not want to cast aside the linear component of it, the RSNs, because those still provide a lot of revenue. And for the big market franchises, they're not looking to give up their streaming.
They like their model, right?
They love their model. It's profitable for them.
The Dodgers cut half their fans out and still figured out how to make billions of dollars, right?
The Dodgers have a $8.35 billion TV contract. Really helps when you're going out to sign players. And even in a deal, to your point, that is not in, you can't see it in half the market. this is why this thing with Diamond Sports is dragged on. I mean, because it is so messy. There's so many entities involved.
It's
You've got
mass and times 15, right?
it's
Literally.
MLB, and MLB is at the center of it. The NHL and NBA are kind of on the periphery. They're ready to move on, do their own thing. NBA is about to sign a gigantic deal, which also is going to have a few complications, it appears.
Even
But
just with Charles Barkley, just figured
right.
him out's enough,
Yeah.
right?
So it's baseball is in a challenging spot from a TV standpoint because it has been the foundation of their economic model. That big TV, right? Because baseball, you're right. There's so much inventory. That's what made it so perfect for RSNs because you played 162 games a year. You had
Content,
shorter
content.
programming.
We need content,
You had
live
pregame
content,
show,
only
postgame
sports.
show.
Now you can bet on it. Oh my God, everybody's going to want it. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, we're winning here, and I'm trying to measure how they're going to play clinch games in September, and there aren't just 17,000 fans running around like it's Major League or something. Like, when is it going to really get vibrant here financially? And we have the problem in this market, and you talked about depressed asset. Maybe the word Baltimore, and I'm Baltimore positive, Kurtz, as you
yeah,
know. But,
yeah.
I also sold the condo that you're looking at. This was the view from where I lived for 19 years. I sold it for $250,000 less than I put into it.
Yeah.
So depressed assets all through downtown and through the city. And we talk about the city trying to come back and the bridge going down. I mean, crazy stuff that's happened here, not just here, but in the country in general, politically and otherwise. The fact
Uh,
that they got $600 million for both of these owners, no one blinked, no one voted on it, no one said a word about it. It's just we're going to build a black wing into the stadium and build a shinier perimeter club to have more high profile, exclusive.
yeah.
The word exclusive is in every word for the $600 million the citizens spend. The baseball team better figure it out so it's not so exclusive. Because I'm telling you, I've been here I got long hair. I'm from Dundalk. I know this community. Ruxton's this big, and we don't have a lot of rich people here, and we
Right.
certainly don't have like these fat cat wealthy companies that are just going to underwrite all of this, which is one of Dick Cass's bitches through all of this is we didn't have enough big money around here. And it's really, when you mentioned the glory era of Oriole baseball, and I did write a little bit of a book on this, the first 10 years of the club suites at Camden Yards, when there was no football, when there was fear of losing baseball, when Washington was trying to get baseball, when Washington companies and George Will and Larry King and we're all up
Yeah.
here and like all that was going, Bill Clinton's up here throwing out the ball. Like all that went away with the mismanagement. They lost all the sky, and then they had to give it all to the Nationals, and that's never coming back. So when Mr. Rubenstein buys this depressed asset, I really do wonder, this isn't Willy Wonka. There's no glass, there's a ceiling here. And I don't know where it
Oh, yeah.
is or
Yeah.
where the bean counters in your world, the valuations look at this kind of a franchise and why Rubenstein bought this instead of the Nationals. I'm thinking it because he could claim the Baltimore part of this, although he hasn't had a lot to do with Baltimore ever since he left. But it had the network, and I think there was and it was available. The Nationals weren't. But I'm just trying to figure out his real play in this and what the exit will be and what the real strategy of fixing my city is, because that's my stake in it. My stake is the poor dude I sold my condo to, that he doesn't sell it for $250,000 less than I sold it to him for, because we're trying to resurrect the city. And I think that's at the heart of everything. There's one of the reasons I bug you, brother.
Yeah, yeah, no, you raise a lot of salient points. And it's the reality of this situation when the club was on the market and you talk to bankers, and they're like, I go down to Baltimore and drive around, but it's a tougher sell for some of these billionaires than some of these markets. So there is definitely a ceiling. The Orioles are not returning to a top 5 market. They're not going to be a top 10 market. You're talking about the middle of the pack in terms of MLB from a financial standpoint. That is at this point, that's the ceiling for what we're talking about with Baltimore. And in terms of Nationals versus Orioles, um, if I'm a 74-year-old guy, I think I'd rather own the Orioles for the next 5 years instead of the Nationals. And I think I got a better chance of raising a trophy with the Orioles than the Nationals. But
Anybody would tell you can make more money with the Nationals,
yes,
theoretically.
yes, no, 100%. The Nationals have also not been managed very well. They've had, again, the they've been impacted by Masson, 100%, but certainly have made some questionable decisions in terms of uh, player makeup and how the team is marketed. So there is a lot of upside there as well. Ted Lerner seems to have, you know, be the lead horse in terms of buying the franchise if can ever excuse me, Ted Leonsis, if he can ever settle on a price with the Lerner family, seems to be the lead guy. But there
And that's
is,
all about media. To your point, that's all about, like, I'm going to get the rights back. I'm going to have my hockey team, my basketball team, move them to Virginia, maybe if I want to, probably not. Oh, I never meant that. Like, dude, the lack of integrity I just see across all of this, they threw me out. And I'm like, dude, did I really need to be in a room full of lying billionaires? You know what I mean? Like, and then I have to carry their water. Like, it's insane. But it really is. But I'm trying to figure out what I'm getting with Rubenstein and what our level of expectation should be of what new ownership represents,
well,
because it already feels better than Angelo's because it is what it is. But it's times like this and weeks like this where I call you and say, well, there's a trading deadline and assets and asset management of young players that are under team control. They're just think they're going to go get Scooble and give away a bunch of young guys. These are the young guys they're going to have to backfill if they can come to terms with Rutschman and Henderson, and they don't have to walk over $50 million so that this thing can be sustainable and not
right.
what Kansas City was or what some other places where the
Yeah,
5-year Manfred plan. Dude, I live in Baltimore. I don't want a 5-year plan and the place is empty in 31 and
right.
nobody wants to buy the cable package and then it's on life support, because it feels to me like when people stop buying cable. I watch these Miami Marlins games this week. I'm like, I don't care what I'm selling. I would not want to have to sell the cable package, the WWE package for the Miami Marlins to a fan
Yeah,
base that's
yeah.
non-existent and
Well,
never
you
has
have
been.
an ownership group though with very, very deep pockets, from lead owner down through the minority LP,
What does that
people
mean
who
they
own
use
L
it?
stakes. Well, that's the $1 million question. You've had billionaires, billionaires become billionaires because they don't waste money. Now, I think some of these guys are at a point maybe in their careers where their life. So the reality is you don't make a lot of money on a year-to-year basis in baseball. I don't care who you are. I mean, if you want to generate good cash flow, owning a sports team outside of an NFL team is not the place to do it. Dodgers, Yankees, Cubs, they're not generating significant cash flow versus the revenue that they have. The margins are really small in these business. So for the Orioles, are the idea of making a 20-30 million dollar profit versus I'm putting another 30 million into payroll and breaking even. I Listen, these guys are smart businessmen. They should know that to build this asset, where ultimately you're going to have, your biggest payday is to build this asset up and to have a successful franchise again. That's where you're going to make your money, not on a year-to-year basis in terms of generating net income.
I saw on that piece that Mr. Rubenstein did on Squawk Box. I mean, he began the whole thing by talking about his great friendship with Biden and how he used to be a Democrat, but now he's independent. But he just interviewed Trump and sat down with Trump, and Trump made some points. And who are you voting for? Well, I'm not political, he said. In any way, I'm not political. And my jaw dropped. This was my introduction to first watching him about a month ago. He did this piece right after the Orioles lost a bunch of game with the Astros, and I looked at it and I thought to myself, this felt slippery to me as a journalist in a lot of ways, and accountability wise. But it really does feel like there's the money that these things are generating becomes significant because they have to bean count it, and Katie Griggs is going to have to be responsible for it. But the NFL, with your reporting, and I want to move the conversation a little bit toward that. I've had 2 reporters come on this week and say it's idiot proof to run an NFL team because the money's just falling off the truck. Everything I'm reporting with the Orioles, and this is one of the reasons I'm holding all of them accountable, is you all better work your asses off on figuring this out, because you can sign Gunnar Henderson for $50 million and say, well, we're just rich, we're giving money away the way the old Padres owner did, God rest his soul, or the Tigers.
Yep.
And Illich ran
Yeah.
it like that. But baseball doesn't usually run that way. These wealthy guys, I don't think they run that way. Maybe their egos are that large, the way Steinbrenner would sort of get all in. Baseball's a place you can get all in. And football, you can't.
Yeah.
But football is just printing money off the side of a truck that makes it So easy for them to be as arrogant, whatever they want to be. Baseball, you better be a little nicer because to your point, this is a hard business. Baseball's a hard business.
Yeah. Selling 81 games is a lot harder than selling 10. And so that's the challenge that baseball always has. NFL is easy. As we had an event our investment sports event last fall, and bankers on stage saying my golden retriever could run one of these NFL teams. It's you get a check, as we wrote about the national revenue a few weeks ago, right before the Packers put out their annual report. Every team got a check for $402 million last year. Before they sold a ticket, beer, sponsorship, you name it. That was the check from the league. Salary cap, I think, was 235. So that's a nice little cushion to play with. And then you add on local revenue on top of that. So the NFL is an absolute machine. Nobody ever sells. The average ownership tenure is 40 years. So anytime one of these things comes on the market, price goes through the roof. I mean, we've seen the step up. Carolina, 2.3. Denver, 4.6. Washington, 6 billion. But we're reaching a threshold where we're running out of rich people to pay these things, particularly the NFL. There's no institutional money allowed. They will change that, I think, this fall, barring some sort of huge complication. But it will only be 10%. So you still got to come up with the other 90%. And Josh Harris is able to do it because he's made people billions of dollars over the years. So he can go out to them and say, hey, put some money into this thing I'm doing.
Well, that was what the thought of Rubenstein was, that he would easily be able to bring his own partners in, which he hasn't been able to do at Carlisle. And it would just be easy money, that this was a good investment because he was getting involved in it and he wouldn't get involved in anything bad.
Yeah. Well, MLB is different than NFL. So it's not a,
well, did you not a couple years ago, devalue the Orioles in your valuation? Weren't one year they regressed?
Yeah. We had them go down, which is unusual. So granted, I mean, that was back in coming off of the COVID years. Things were dicey in MLB. They got hit very hard because they were about to kick off their season, and so they ended up only playing a 60 game season, and there weren't fans there. And this is as we talked about, this is a local business. That's what drives this model. So the NFL of course did better than anybody because they got to collect all their TV money during the COVID years. Baseball got hit really hard, and these people piled up significant losses. You had a lot of teams posting $100 million losses during the COVID years. So it was definitely a tricky business, and it certainly impacted the valuations because it was not clear how quickly this was going to bounce back.
Back in 2014, when things got good, Adam Jones grabbed me on the field at the All-Star game up in New York City Field and said, "Why does the old guy hate you so much?" The owner, after Free the Birds was 8 years before that. And I said, "You expect me to answer that in 30 seconds?" So I wrote him a book. I wrote the Peter Principles. And in the first chapter, the whole thing was DeWitt's money, and he was going to get the team, and Eli Jacobs and receivership. All this money was sitting in the bank because Camden Yards just threw off $45 million of profit in its first year because it was full. All the All-Star game, all the club seats.
I lived in Washington. I was there.
Okay, so I saw all of that. Angelos bought the team in that courtroom that day. He only had $29 million of cash. A lot of that money that was due to him from asbestos was coming. It was a waterfall that was on its way, not money that was sitting in his bank account. He was not a made guy. He was on the make guy. And this was his way to save the world, save the city, grandstand, do all that he blow hard, all the things that he was. But the story that came to me, that's the best story, are the courtroom stories in that August hot day where his wife was in there, just could not believe that this family that had a bar in Highlandtown was taking all of their money, $173 million, which was a fake price, Kurt. That came with $45 million in cash.
They usually are fake.
It came with $45 million in cash. So it came with this vault of money that Eli Jacobs couldn't touch because of the bankruptcy. And she was ashen faced, and Angelos overbid. He didn't have the money. He just was bullshitting basically and did not have the money. Put the paddle up, said, I got the money, I got the money. And on the way out, said to Joe Foss, elbowed him and said, you'll figure it out. That's what he, and people in the courtroom told me that Peter's wife was just, she could not conceive that he would do this. 29 million. I just did the math. 1.8 billion are you reporting, or 7, whatever you and John Oran report.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, that was the outcome, and they did everything possible to destroy the franchise at every single turn for 30 years. And that's what the family, including the sons fighting with, like everything awful, Mike Flynn, everything awful that ever happened here. And that's how much money they made. I mean, I'm telling you, maybe Mr. Rubenstein's on to so maybe you just can't lose money doing this, bro.
You long term, very hard to lose money owning a sports team. And the Orioles have been a very profitable franchise over the years. This is not a team that was bleeding red ink over all those years. They had the glory years, and then things got bad, totally slashed the payroll to the point where they were still a profitable franchise. So it's an incredible investment for the family. And you know, we've historically seen that, you know, where you're talking about a 10x increase in the gross price, but to your point, certainly didn't put up 173 million right off the bat.
He didn't
So
have 170. You know, he even said to me, "We it's like a mortgage," is what he said to me when he came in. Last thing, because I know you got to run All-Star game and new. How? What does that mean? I mean, what is the value of that for them to start making money off of these other things that they're going to create?
All-Star game, yeah, and that is run by the league, but the advantage for the local property is, one, helps the fan base. Folding that in, you can't give everybody access because the league controls a lot of the ticket inventory, but it's a nice little perk, whether it's that weekend or the whole weekend, or excuse me, the 2-day thing with the home run derby and the game itself. But it's a nice thing for fans to be able to fold into season packages that you're selling, to go out and sell luxury suites, and also to sell sponsorships. It's a nice little just add-on in terms of sponsorships to get people interested, brings new people into the fold. So it's a showcase for your building. You know, Camden Yards launched this new building spree by Major League Baseball, and was the model for so many years for all the building activity that took place in the 1990s and 2000s. And I think this is a way to shine a spotlight back on the building, as well as the hometown players, all the young players that, you know, they hope are the foundation and that they can pay for with these deals. But it's tricky because, you know, as your results improve, the way baseball is set up, your revenue sharing goes down. So, you know, it's this the lower revenue teams are propped up because they get such big revenue sharing checks from the Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, and Dodgers. So
Poverty
it's a
paid back
tricky
in the day for sure, right? Yeah.
yeah, 100%. So the All-Star Game's a nice little way to just kind of bring in new fans, but more importantly, new sponsors that you hope do long-term deals and stick around.
Kurt Badenhausen has been a friend of us back in his former employer for many, many years, but now at Sportico. Real quick on Sportico. Tell folks about Sportico.
Yeah, we're focused on the business of sports, break a lot of news. We do our team valuations, part of Penske Media, which also owns Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Women's Wear Daily, South by Southwest, the music festival. So
Can you
we got
get
a
me
lot.
tickets?
We got a lot of different avenues, partners that we work with, we just did a Variety Summit with Variety out in LA, sports and entertainment. And so it's launched in 2020, and with a bunch of experienced guys that came from Bloomberg and Sports Illustrated. I came from Forbes, a couple other people from Forbes. So it's we're really digging in.
All-star team.
All-star team covering the business of sports, from all, you name it, NBA rights deals to Olympics to NFL team valuations, breaking news left and right. Those are the
First
best stuff
crab
we can
cakes
do.
on me when you get down here. We'll figure out where and when and all that stuff. Kurt Badenhausen, now at Sportico. Please go follow him. Really sort of the gospel of valuations and really the business. And I love having you on. I love the wise conversations we have to peel this back. Because it's an interesting time for my sports and for the community and for downtown and how it all pieces together. There's a lot of money being thrown at it. We just want to make sure it's good money. Kurt, I appreciate you, man. Thanks
Love
for
it.
coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Learning stuff around here, talking a lot of baseball. Luke's out of training camp. Stay with us. We're Baltimore Positive.